Good evening, folks. I promised some time ago that when I got some shooting time with my Sti Spartan, that I would do a more thorough review. But I'm going to modify that a little bit. I'm going to do a what I would call a secondary review. Will not be a extensive review yet, because there are things that I've discovered about my pistol, even after just 100 rounds, that have determined that I'm going to change a few things. They are not going to be extensive. It out of the box is a fantastic defensive tool, but there's personal preferences involved in what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go into a couple of those. I haven't written anything down on a list like I typically do, so this is just kind of off the cuff. It's late at night. It's like 11:20 right now, and I have to be somewhat quiet because my girlfriend is trying to sleep. So it's been hectic. We are in the process of cleaning out a hoarder house that was in the family and has had 10 plus years of hoarding involved, and we have to be out of this apartment inside of 2 weeks. So I don't have a lot of spare time for much at all. In fact, I really have barely seen my kids very limited time in the last month. It's very irksome to me, and I'm really not going to go into more detail than that, just because it really is something that supremely pisses me off, to be honest, because laziness is what's created us having to expedite things. So I had 50 rounds in out of the 200 break-in period of my Spartan about 7 months ago. I've done a couple of things review-wise on it. I'm still really reserved on my opinion because it's not fully broken in. But I've started getting those familiar wear marks on the mating parts of the slide and frame that are known by hand-fitted firearms versus mass-produced. So it's really easy to tell just how hand-fitted a firearm this is. Now, as I've stated previously, this is a slide and frame that are made by Arms Corps in the Philippines that makes frames and slides for lots of companies that do 1911s. The difference is that they get them oversized, delivered to them in Texas, and they put all their parts on. It's an appreciated thing. And there's really not any inconsistencies in this weapon. It, out of the box, is a perfectly acceptable self-defense handgun in a 45 ACP caliber, full 5-inch barrel. And with my level of shooting, I have a bar stool currently. It's hard to get positioned. So, with the things that I know about 1911s, which is fairly extensive, because I've shot since I was 19. The first pistol I ever shot was a Colt, a World War II Colt, no less, that my father says he still has somewhere in storage. And once he passes, I'll probably end up getting it, actually, and I will not molest it in any way. I will keep it for posterity purposes only. I will not fire the weapon. I know the platform very well, and this is a 1911 A1 series, and it's an iteration that works very well, but there are things that are inconsistent to me. Number one is the trigger stud. Okay, now, it's skeletonized, it's a half moon, it's a 3/4 size. That's, in itself, is not bad. I don't mind that. It's the fact that it's plastic. I have an all-steel weapon here. Why in the fuck do I have a plastic trigger? I don't care how far plastics have come. I hate plastic fucking triggers. Well, on a firearm in general, plastic bothers me. Now, I will admit, I have 25,000 rounds for my Glock 45, and everything that is associated with certain parts of the frame part of it is plastic, except for, of course, the trigger group. So, you know, you got the locking block and a couple other little pieces in there that are not plastic, but the bar that holds the springs and the metal bars for the trigger mechanism and the trigger are plastic. But they're formed in such a way that they work for that weapon, and about 50% of that weapon is plastic. This is not 50% plastic. This is about 98% steel. So why, again I say, why the fuck? So it bothers me. Thankfully, with the advent of more online sales of aftermarket parts, these are things that can be solved relatively inexpensively. I can get oversized parts online. I can take them to I don't remember the name of it offhand, but the gunsmith at C2 Tactical here in the Valley. Right Armory. The gunsmiths there are very well trained. C2 is a division, a secondary and newer portion of Caswell's, which is still very much in service. And Kinney's Customs, which used to be there way back in the 90s when I had my 1911s before, and they did excellent work. So these people are really still very good, and I'm going to have them do a couple things. So secondary is the sight. Now this is a standard long Bowmar cut. I don't mind Bowmar cut. I think that they're a more secure cut, to be honest, because there's more surface area that the sight is sitting in. That's well and good. It's got a set screw. This one in particular is not set screwed into the slide with this screw. This is an adjustment for elevation. And the set screws are actually the miniature ones here, and are Loctited from the factory. So it's really not a hard thing to remove. But I will not do it myself because I'd have to sight it in and be at the range and sight it in, and I'm sorry, I pay people to do shit for me like that. So I haven't taken the gunsmithing class, and to be honest, if I can, in the near future I'm going to, because I want to get a certificate and start doing such things in my later years. So that's something that's going to change. That will become a solid combat Bowmar. This is going away. I like fiber optic. I hate the dual cuts. They grab on fucking holsters. I hate those goddamn things. You'll notice that the paddle for the slide safety is extended. The slide stop is not. And that's something that's going to be solved. Not outwards, but one of the ones that comes out a little bit and goes back. I find that even though I can pull this back, it has been safety checked. So with the slide safety, I can activate it just fine all day long. But I have to turn to activate this or do it with my other thumb. No. Not on my watch. I have not had to do that with any other 1911 I've had so far. And I'm certainly not going to start now. So I am primarily right-handed. I can be ambidextrous if I want, but I'm primarily right-handed. It's my strong hand. So I'm not going to have an ambi safety. I don't like it. Excuse me. My apologies if I do that a couple times. It's really late. I'm not going to get an ambi for the strict purpose that they're pinned together, and I just don't like that fact at all. So that will not be something I will do to this. It has the full through guide rod. It lends itself to being problematic to take this thing apart. It's kind of a bear to take this thing apart, and it's not even broken in all the way, which makes it even more problematic, believe it or not. It's really just supremely tight, and I really don't mind that per se. good gravy, man. It can be a pain. I'll just put it that way. So it lends certain things to being kind of hard, you know. It doesn't have too hard a time breaking down after things like that are taken care of. But I'm taking it apart right now to show a couple things, make it easier to display. So there are the startings. If you see the points that are getting kind of shiny like that, those are the smaller wear points from a hand-fitted weapon. You will see that it's got the start of some of the finish on the hammer. I'm kind of I like the hammer, but I kind of like a more skeletonized. But this one is skeletonized on both sides this way. So I'm gonna kind of give it a chance for a while because it's really positive on engagement with the firing pin. So I really don't mind that too much, you know. Some things are kind of in life are kind of a give and take anyway. And this is definitely one of those things that should be give and take. So, without too much fanfare, it is a single piece stainless. It's a heavy stainless rod. It's a full thickness rod. It comes from them, and it is pin flanged on at the back end, which it's supposed to be able to be removable. I might get a tungsten version, maybe a hand-fit tungsten version. I like a lot of forward weight so that the recoil really bumps into the back of the hand because of the bore axis. And when I hold a 1911, I get the grip around the front, I lock my thumb, and I lock my other thumb down. I don't do up like this like some guys do because that doesn't give you a firm enough grip on a 1911, or most firearms for that matter. I like a full down grip because it presses my hands together, and when I come out and lock on, I have a full lock, and it has very little rise to the muzzle at that point. And I guess I have been trained that way for a reason. But I also shoot both eyes open, acuity down the barrel, just as much as I do with the sights. So my training is significantly different than a lot of people's. It is, if I can get it out. Somebody once told me you have to be smarter than your equipment. It's true. It is a fully braced, full-length sleeve / bushing. It is completely hand-fitted. That is one of STI's parts. The barrel is also one that I don't know if they buy their barrels in-house per se, but it is a hand-fitted, full breeched. The diameter and the angle lends itself to the feed ramp getting itself right on line. The feed ramp in this is fairly steep, but it's right on par when the mag is in. So there's very, very little play involved in coming over the pinch point to go into the barrel, the ramp. There's no feeding issues. There's no need to have a feed ramp polish or a re-ramping because the newer 1911s in general, they're much higher when the magazine sits in. They fixed that with a lot of them because it used to be that they sat down and you had to make the ramp at a shallow angle to make them feed. It's not like that anymore. The game is a lot newer now. People have kind of learned their lessons from the original design that John Moses Browning intended. So there's improvements that have been made. Now, I've got to tell you that this full guide rod with the hold pin to the retaining plug, I'm not a big fan of it, but this is certainly easier than the ones where you have to put a freaking pin through it to hold it pressurized. I know I'm going to have a 1911 like that at some point because I'm going to have a bull barrel again. The last bull barrel I had was a Springfield V10. It was a 3-inch barrel, had 5 ports on each side and the front. And I got rid of it because it had really severe feeding issues. To be honest, it just was not worth it to me anymore. I had multiple gunsmithing sessions. The feed ramp was re-radiused like half a dozen times. The barrel was crowned to see if that would help with the gases expelling to feed because of the cycle rates. And I found out later on, after it was sold, from the owner that bought it from me, that it was a fucking $10 magazine spring that was the issue. Really irked me because I spent $600 on a gun and spent another $600 or so on gunsmithing. Really, really irritated the shit out of me. So I won't ever buy a Springfield again because of that. So on to this slide stop. So it has that kind of classic step, but just a little bit extended, like this. It has good grooving on it. The problem I have is that I can't actuate it with my thumb like I can with thumb safety. So I want one of the ones that it's about the same width out, but it comes back around the plunger, so that it comes back, or it's lifted up and over. There's some that are like that too. So I'll find one of those and have a hand fit one that Wright can put on there for me. So there's a couple things. The sight that I'm going to get a Wilson Combat Crescent Moon trigger, which is again almost less by half of this. I like a really short trigger. I like very little over travel whatsoever. I have a very fast reset with my finger. I like to have a lot of space in the groove when I come on point. I bring a full flat pad in. I go all the way in with my finger with pad, and this spacing doesn't lend itself to that kind of comfort. And what if I have combat gloves on? On top of that, I would like to have that. Unfortunately, the original classic Colt half moons, which are really sought after, they're sold on eBay all the time, but they won't fit this frame because they're thicker with Colt, because Colts were bigger 1911s. So it would take hand fitting up the ass, and I'm just not into taking that much time and paying that much money for a vintage piece of equipment parts to be put in my weapon. Sorry, brand new weapon. I might as well get a nice Wilson one. Either be an STI or Wilson that'll be the extended one of these. And of course, I'm going to have the fixed sight. So there's a few things. The other one that I'm really seeking to do is, this is one of the pinned on back straps, and I'm going to take and get one of the slimline beveled magwells that are not the big fat competition ones, but they're beveled enough that it's an easier slap in, and they're usually the same piece that this is put on as well. I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything as far as grips, because I'm used to the Glock, so the bigger grip is not bad for me. So there's a few things. I have noticed, and this is where it gets interesting for me. This is, I believe, the A47 series Wilson Combat Mag that fits brilliantly in my weapon. This is believe it's a Chip McCormick that they use for the Sti Spartan. This one hangs fairly loose, so it goes in positively, but you can obviously hear it. And it's like that when it's loaded and it's in there too, by the way. So it feeds reliably. It has a metal one, but it's the rounded top. See how it's a rounded top? I don't like that design. Does it put it up on top? Well, yeah, it does. But see how this is the Wilson one. You see the flat lip? This flat lip is it's literally already over the feed ramp. So the bullet is right along the bore axis of the barrel. It's really, really spot on. You put this one in, and it's bowed. Do you see how it's bowed like that? So it's doing the same thing, but in a different manner, and I don't like that manner. I don't like it at all. And the thing that I really don't like about this is that it is designed in such a way that the plate from the spring is right up in it. This has the capability of catching on things. Not a fan of that design. I love Wilson Combat Mags. I'm not knocking Chip McCormick. The mags are great. There's other ones that are better, but Wilson's are my go-tos. And so the thing of it is, with this STI, I went to one of the gun shops in Mesa, and I got this with the STI mag and the Wilson mag out the door for $755. This firearm is every bit as good, if not better, than most $1,500 weapons from most companies. And it really lends itself to shooting beautifully. And it's a thing that I appreciate because I demand a lot from my weapons. I'm very, very specific when it comes to that. Now, one of the things that I don't like is extended mag releases. I have a slightly extended one on my Glock because the stock Glock one sucks ass. So I did it on that because it was a necessity. I have big hands, but my thumbs are the smallest portion. You even looked at my pinky. See the difference? My thumbs are fat and everything, but they're not long like the rest of my hand is for as meaty as it is. And I have to compensate in certain things in life because of that. So they do lock down really good when I do things like that. So I will be getting an extended release for that because the stud right now, as you can see, it's really fairly shallow. I can actuate it, but I have to turn it in my hand like this to do that and do the slide release, and that's a tactical no-no for me. Yeah, I might be getting picky, but when you're defending your life, picky's a good thing. And that's why I'm picky. So, I don't demand less than perfection from myself when I shoot, and I certainly don't demand less than that from my weapons. And if I bought another new 1911, it would be much the same way with that. So, that's kind of that's that thing to me, anyway. And that's kind of what it is. So, actually, this one has to be done in a certain way. So, it lends itself to being easier if I do it a certain way. Just because of the way that this bevel is. Okay, here we go. And the bull barrel that they had on the Springfield V10, the bull barrel was beautiful. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a great weapon, but it jammed all the time. Reload or not, it jammed. And I found out later on, after I sold it, that it was something simple like the fucking magazine spring. It made me so mad. I was in love with that weapon. Absolutely in love with that weapon. And I had to get rid of it because I kept having feeding issues. And to find out, there we go, to find out that I didn't need to get rid of it, that really irked me. If somebody had been paying attention, I won't mention any names for gunsmiths, but if they had been paying attention, I wouldn't have been in that boat. And if I not been in that boat, I would have still had that weapon. And that is what irks me, my friends. That irks me. If I shouldn't have to get rid of something and I end up getting rid of it because of something menial like that, and I've spent that kind of money, that makes me mad. Think about this for a minute. I spent $600 for a subcompact 1911 that, by all rights, was a badass weapon. It was ported. It had no recoil for a 45. And I spent 3/4 of what I got this for in gunsmithing to find out later on it was a $10 magazine spring. You might be mad at something like that. And, well, I was. So, you know, it's ancient history. I can't do anything about it. There are times where I would love to do something about it, but I can't because it's in the past, and as you know, in the past is in the past, and that's where the past belongs. So when it goes back together, it's really a positive lock. It has very little side to side. So I'm going to show you this assembled and the difference between the STI at this point. So this is how it looks on the inside now. Doesn't look like much when it's sitting with the slide on, but guess what? It's really in line with the barrel. Really super in line. And with the Wilson, it is more of a curved affair, but it's still in line. And that's why I really like the Wilson comparatively, because when it's up in the chamber of the magwell, it follows the curve of the entire assembly on the inside of the chamber. They think of things, these Wilson peoples. And to be frank, I actually really have considered a Nighthawk, because the person that started Nighthawk was a ex-gunsmith from Wilson. He left to do his own thing. And they turned out some really good weapons. So I'm going to demonstrate one more thing, kind of before I go, on one of the reasons that I chose to get a Wilson mag. And I'll be honest with you, if I get one or two more of these Wilson mags, this McCormick one will probably be a stored thing. So, safety check. Yes. I'm not going to activate it. I'm just going to show you this. This is the Wilson. And this is how it looks when it's lined up. It has a very minute angle to go into that chamber. Very positive, very instant lock. I'm not going to activate it because it's really loud and I don't want to wake her up. So that's what that one. It has very little play to it either on that. This one, on the other hand, still has that, okay? The bullet is about the same, but it's angled differently because of that big hump on the top. And that's why I don't like this magazine. Does it feed? Yes. Does it feed as well as the Wilson? Not a chance. So, in all reality, this firearm as it sits is really a nice ready-to-go firearm, but there's just some, to me, things that need to be changed. This is going away for a fixed. This is going away for a nice tall front post. This is making way for an extended. This is making way for an extended. And this is being changed to a skeletonized stainless half spur with no over travel, because I reset like a motherfucker. The other thing that I've noticed, though, and I didn't do it with the slide off for you guys, I really should have, the firing pin retainer on the back. It's been hand fitted and it's kind of lopsided. It doesn't change anything functionality wise, but I can't take it off here at home. And on all my other 1911s I've ever owned, I've been able to do that to clean my firing pin. So when I go to Wright Tactical, Wright Armory, I'm going to have one of these bought and hand fitted by them to be able to be removed at home, because I like to completely field strip my weapons. It bothers me that I can't. And you know, once they're the retainer's pulled, it's easy to maintain. You can pull the ejectors, extractors, all that stuff out. It's not really hard to work on one of these slides once you get used to it. The weapon, all in all, it's really phenomenal for its price. It is every bit, like I said, as good as some of the $1,500 ones out there, even some of the $2,000 ones out there. In fact, I would rather, and I know I'm saying this, and I can't believe I am because of how good a weapon they are, but the Smith & Wesson Performance Center ones that have the nice cuts in the slide to lighten the slide, I would shoot this before I'd shoot that because of the comfort of shooting it. There's a few brands that I really just don't like. Now, that being said, I'll go through a little bit of them. I love Rock River. They are phenomenal firearms. I hate Rock Island. Now, it's Armscore. So you would think, well, why would you hate that? Hello, you have one that's based on a frame and slide made by them. Yes, but the problem is that a lot of the different brands that are simply Armscore made for them are not the same hand fit quality, and this is a distinction that I have. There's things on this weapon that just appeal to me, and there's things that do not on this weapon that I will be changing at the cost of about $400. At that point in time, this weapon will be on par on anything in the $2,000 range, and if I get another weapon, I've thought about Smith & Wesson's Performance Center, but in a compact. I need a concealed carry, and I hate Kembers, and it's a shame that I hate them because everyone I fired has sucked. But I love compact 45s, and I won't go back to Springfield. I just won't. I had a sour taste in my mouth from the one I had, and that did it for me, you know? And this is the way that it is with customers. It's unfortunate. I love the weapon, but it kept jamming, and I just can't get past that. I'm not going to do that. So, it only leaves a couple people. Para-Ordnance is a possibility. Their P10 or their Warthog, they're really good, reliable 1911s. So, the Warthog is a 3-inch barrel with a 10-round clip. Double stack. Come on. I've handled a Glock 45 21 with that obnoxiously huge grip for 17 years. I can handle that. So I thought about looking for a used Warthog and just having Right Armory kind of enhance it for me. But before I can get myself another 1911, I'm buying my girlfriend a firearm. So at that point I'll have one for her, both of mine. I'm going to have the grip redone on my Glock because I have everything else done to it. And I'm going to enhance this one for pure personal preference and tactical ability because it's speedy as hell with the grip safety for me. It's very easy to do, but the slide stop I have to turn to the side. The mag release I have to turn to the side, and that's microseconds that are lost in a combat situation. When I have to drop a mag, I want to be able to be at your presence and dropping it. I don't want to have to turn to the side and not pay attention to where you're at because you may be throwing rounds my way still. And that irks me. So, it's unfortunate that that's the way it is with this weapon because it's such a flawless weapon for its price range. Now, I will post-face that by saying that the other STIs that I observed and held and cycled at C2 were great weapons and even more flawless than this. So this is a standard heavy-duty, heavy steel 1911 designed for hard use, but not quite because of this piece of shit. And I hate adjustable sights because they have moving parts in them and they are inherently unreliable compared to fixed. So that's definitely a to-go. If I didn't get anything else fixed on this to my liking, that would be one of them right off the bat. So if I get the sight and the trigger and have to wait a while for the others, well, I can handle that. But they have to be hand-fitted because everything else on this weapon has been hand-fitted. And I believe that Right Armory are the ones to do it. They work on some very high-end, high-profile firearms. So that's simply the way I do it. You know, I still have really good dexterity. I certainly don't have the same strength I did even 10 years ago with certain things. So having extended functions, but on a tactical level and not one of those levels of extended that are stupid and or only for competition, but tactical extension works for me. I can handle that. Most of the stuff on this weapon is rounded off in such a way that it's made to be holster carried very well. It's got just a little bit of rounding. You know, I could melt it down. I could get the barrel crowned. I mean, I could get the barrel flushed with the bushing and crowned, but I don't want to lose a lot of length. So I may just have it semi-flushed and a real nice even crown. It's got a very slight crown to it already, if you can tell when you look at it. So I don't know. I mean, it's crowned already. It's kind of a jagged one though. I like a nice buttery crown. And that's the one thing that on that bull barrel, on that V10, Springfield from the factory had a badass crown on it. Going into the barrel was butter smooth. On the outer edge, butter smooth. There was no you're going to cut your finger off if you touch it type stuff like some of the crowns. I've seen some crowns on some custom guns that they were so sharp they could cut glass. I don't like that on a tactical weapon. I really don't. Self-defense or otherwise, that's a no-no to me. Unless you have one of those dust cover spikes that's welded on like some of the ones I've seen. Tactical spikes where you can latch stitch effort, you know. I'll never have that though. No, I don't know. I mean, I would probably do it on this one, but it would be welded to here and extended. But then to me, you're going into forces on your weapon that they're not intended for. So I tend to not go for stuff like that. I think it looks badass though. I would probably just have it welded on just to look badass, you know. The next one that I get will definitely be a full dust cover. I like a monolith style slide and frame, so it will be that way. This one is perfect the way it is for the slide and frame. I would have liked it better if it was a monolith style. And for that reason, if I get a compact and I want a high-end, something that's a 3 to 4 inch in the 2000 and up range, I'll probably just get a Infinity Arms, because Infinity, Strier Voigt, was started by one of the founding members of STI. They went their separate ways, and then the owner that was left with STI eventually sold it to the employees. This is another reason I bought a Spartan, because the employees own the company. They have a vested interest in doing good. And they put out badass work. And it's one gunsmith, one gun. That's the way they do it. Nighthawk, they're the same way. But there's very few that are like that. I mean, even Wilson Combat, the Wilson Combat, Ed Brown, Dan Wesson, that's now sold by CZ. Yes, they are hand-fitted. The Smith & Wesson Performance Centers are hand-fitted. But then you got Kember's mass-produced. You've got Sig Sauer's mass-produced. And they have custom shops. And the custom shops are the ones that do the hand-made weapons, truly hand-fitted. STI is 100% hand-fitted. And besides this one, 1911, all of the rest of their firearms are completely in-house. That is badass. Excuse me. I'm just full of bodily things right now. Infinity Arms, Strier Voigt, it used to be called. The minute you order it is the minute that they start doing it. You have a very hands-on, very hand-fitted process. They turn out some of the most badass weapons on the planet. They do exactly what you want and nothing more. And they're that good. Now, that being said, if I have my druthers, which I hope to have in the next couple of years, I will have a Chambers custom. The reason I will have a Chambers Custom, or maybe even soon my Spartan 2 Chambers, is he is a one-at-a-time gunsmith. He, from start to finish, does all of his work. He'll buy things from other people, but he also does a high amount of his own fabrication, and the weapons that he turns out are truly phenomenal. I just did not have the, $3,000 baseline price for even having a weapon from the man, or I would have had one, and I would have not gotten an STI. I would have gotten a Joe Chambers. Just unfortunately, I have not had that kind of money. But if I had had that kind of money at the time, I definitely would have gone through him. But he has a waiting period. Even if you send something into him, it's still a waiting period all the way. So the likelihood that I'll be able to get a hand-fitted, handmade, hand-built Joe Chambers Custom 1911, it's pretty slim to none. It's unfortunate because the man's really awesome too. But if I do get another one and I have enough of an income, it's probably going to be an STI, because the ones that I've seen and the hand fitting that they do, they're impossible to ignore. And you just would do yourself the right way by getting an STI if it had one in your range of what you want in a firearm of the 1911 variety. They have 9mm, they have 45s. I'm sure upon special request they could even do, like, say, a 357 SIG or a 460 Roland right off the bat designed. I've considered asking them if they would do a 460 Roland in one of their higher end ones, because that would be really awesome. 460 Roland's a badass caliber. It basically, essentially, takes a 45 caliber size bullet, has an extra little bit of case. The case itself is thicker, has about twice the amount of powder, and it takes a 45 projectile and sends it down the range at around the same velocity as the 357 Magnum, but has just above the power of 44 Magnum. It is a retarded round. It's one of those ones that you can actually use for defense, and you could take down a bear, if, say, a bear or a bobcat or whatever attacked you. You wouldn't have to worry about it after you shot them with it, because it's just that high impact a caliber. But the rounds are not cheap, so it would be one that would not be fired very well, very much. But I would still buy it, and I would still carry it, because it has about the same recoil because of the guide rod system, and most 1911 frames that are big enough can handle it. So I may do it, or I may just do the drop-in for my Glock, because there's a drop-in conversion kit for it. It's just barrel compensator and spring. I can handle that. Hell, I could do that all day long and not have a problem with it. It's $360, but I'd do it. But as for my personal defense weapon, my STI Spartan, those are the few things that I'm going to do. It's just going to be a matter of getting past this chaos that is my life right now and being able to afford it. And when I do and I shoot it again, I'll give impressions on that too. With this video on Facebook, I'll have a couple pictures of accuracy on this part, and hopefully I'll have a new update fairly soon. It's not going to be until the beginning of next year, though. Just is not going to be. But I will as soon as I can.